Okay, so we're here checking out Sharky and his UV maps. Alright. It's looking pretty good, but when we come down to the bottom area here where the tail is, it starts to really go off track. We've got all these UVs here that are really stretched out very far, okay? And then we also have UVs over here that are really skinny and kind of mashed in together with one another, right? So our spacing down here is really not good. And luckily, it's pretty easy to address this area, okay? Because when we're doing something like this particular UV map, it's mostly about finding where we want our edges to be and laying out our outer edges correctly, okay? And then once we have our outer edges where we want them to be, or at least approximately where we want them to be, we can actually let the unfold and relax, the smooth UV tool here, do a lot of the work for us, okay? So to really quickly deal with the spacing issues in this area, I can actually just grab a whole lot of UVs in this section, okay, just all the way across the board. I want to get a good sample of both sides, okay? Make sure that when you do this, you have not grabbed any of the UVs along the outer edge. It's very important, okay? Don't grab anything that's on this outside edge, but grab things that are very close to it. Make sure you have, a pretty large block of this section selected. And then what we can actually do is use our unfold tool, and you can see as I use that, it just almost like magic just takes that and untangles all of it and spaces it out very nice and evenly. Okay, so now it's looking a little more like what we have up in the top here, and we can even grab this section as well, this top section, and we can keep doing that sort of thing to really help out our spacing. Okay. Now, when I did that, it did kind of mess with these fin areas, but again, it's just grabbing this and using that unfold and relax tool. In this case, I'm using the relax to readdress this area rather quickly. As you can see, it's not taking too long to kind of deal with those. And here as well, we can just grab this and use our relax tool on it. Okay. So you can see where we can really start to get some good results here relatively quickly. Just making sure that we are, grabbing appropriate size sections and avoiding grabbing those outer edges. Okay, and I'll show you why we don't want to grab the outer edges as well. So if I grab a section here and I have these outer edges included, when I use the unfold tool, you can see it kind of caves in on itself, alright? Or the relax tool as well, it just pulls all of this in and makes some really teeny tiny little faces on top of faces there. So, as long as you are careful not to grab those outside edges, and you have those outside edges roughly where you want them to be already, then it's just a matter of going in and using your unfold and relax tools quite a bit. So another thing that we'll kind of look at here is, even though we've dealt with a lot of that area really quickly, there's still some problems here that we want to deal with as well, okay? So, for example, at this area right here is really quite tangled up, alright? So we haven't really set up our edges the way we want them in this area, okay? So this is just a, a moment when I'd start zooming way in on this and trying to kind of untangle my outside edges of this area. Again, I don't really have to mess too much with all of this stuff in the middle here, because as long as I get those outside edges kind of where I want them, then the rest will kind of follow when we're using our Smooth UV tool, okay? So just grabbing those outer edges, pulling them around. And it can get a little crazy when you start working with these edges, alright? They can get tangled up pretty severely, pretty quickly. Just keep on, pulling on things until you've found that outside edge. And just, I'm just moving these along the bottom of the UV space here. Okay, I'm just kind of making a square or something like it. Okay, so, another kind of important factor here is we really need to pay attention to this center line that cuts down the center of Sharky's body, okay? So when we're looking at our UVs, we've got this really nice line on the outside edge that is, straight and vertical and kind of defining the center line of Sharky. Likewise, the center line here in the exact center should also be really a beautiful vertical line, okay? We don't want to see it veering off to the side as it is here. We just want it to continue straight down to the bottom, or the end, the nose tip and the tail end of our shark, okay? So what we have here is an instance of the center line actually veering off sharply to the right. Okay, so we need to make sure that we come in here and pull that center line back out again. Okay, it's really pretty important that we get it coming back in the right direction. So something like this, all right, should be coming down this center area here. So when I pull this over a little bit, we can kind of move things around here, space them out a little better. When I pull this over, we can see that we've kind of split this tail area right here. Okay, there's kind of a seam in the fabric of our shark, so we can sew that up just using edge mode here. We can grab those edges. You can see when I click on one edge, the other one lights up, indicating that they're corresponding to one another. Okay, they're just two sides, if you will, of the same edge. So we grab those guys. We can use our Sew UV tool here to just sew those two back together. So now they're happy and connected. All right, so make sure you go in and deal with that area. All right, and I'm also going to come in back in UV mode and space these out a little more, okay, because right now they're all sort of squished over on one side here. So I'm going to space them out a little bit, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because this is really just kind of laying out a rough idea of where I want these things to be. Once we have gone in and untangled all this good stuff up here, then we can really see a little better where we'll want things to be and what will look appropriate. Okay, so I'm also going to untangle the other side before I start or at least untangle the outer edges of the other side before I start really messing with that area, okay? So again, you know, it's just going to be a process of coming over and finding your outside edges, okay, and pulling them out along, somewhere along this UV space, okay? It's a little tedious, but it will really help out the look of your model in the end. If you go through and make sure you do a good job on your UV mapping. You may find that sometimes you're going to have to zoom in pretty far just to be able to see what you're doing. Okay, so that appears to have taken care of all my outside edges again. Just going to space these out somewhat evenly. Really not very evenly, but you know, give them a little bit of room. Give each one its own space, okay? Alright, and once I've done that, again, I can grab a large section of UVs, alright? Making sure that I'm not grabbing those outside edges, but grabbing pretty much everything else that I can manage to. You might want to also zoom in and really make sure that you're grabbing all of these all the way up to the outside edge, alright? Anything that you don't have a hold of will not become untangled, so it'll be problematic for you later. So make sure you're going in, getting everything that's not part of that outer edge, or at least almost everything. Something like that. Alright, and then we can just use that Unfold and Relax tool to really help bring all these things back into line. Okay, so I've done something a little strange here to just kind of illustrate a few things about your UV map. What I've gone ahead and done is to grab exactly half of Sharky's faces, okay? Except for it looks like I missed a few on the dorsal fin here. But basically I'm going through and grabbing all of the faces on one side of Sharky, okay? So that we can kind of take a look at how our UV map is looking compared to, or sorry, in relation to our center line, okay? Center line is very important for this particular UV map. So I'm just gonna go in here. Bear with me for a moment as I make sure I really do get all of the faces on one side. Alright. Okay. So I'm feeling fairly confident now that I have in fact gotten all of the faces on one side of Sharky selected. Alright. Now if we take a look at our texture editor here, you can see all these highlighted faces and edges that we've got here. Alright. So this, anything that you're seeing outlined in orange is one half of Sharky, is this half of Sharky, okay? And all this blue space is the other half, alright? So what we ideally want to see is all of this blue space, okay, or one half of Sharky, sort of directly laid out in sort of a rectangular way, okay? So anything that's just this blue color should be on this side, alright? And it shouldn't travel over to the other side as it does here, okay? And similarly, these should all be on their own side and shouldn't be traveling over anywhere else, okay? So we just really want to make sure that we only have faces that we want on this side. So for example, where we can see these little blue areas that are not outlined, okay, that's areas where we have sort of the wrong half of Sharky hanging out over here, where really we should have it over here, okay? So we'll have to take those faces and move them over manually, okay? So basically what we should have when we're finished is this straight line going along here and a straight line going along here. Those represent the same edge, okay? Those will represent this bottom center line of Sharky, okay? And we should also have a straight line vertically dividing the two halves in the center here as well, okay? So that would be representative of this top center line on Sharky's body, okay? So, you know, just to kind of reiterate, we want a straight center line. It shouldn't be veering off. None of this plain blue should be on this side, and none of these highlighted edges should be over here on this side, okay? There should be a clear division. So with that said, let's go ahead and start dealing with some of the areas where things may not be where we want them to be, okay? So there are really just a couple of areas that we need to look at as far as things being on the wrong side. This is one of them right here, where we've got some plain blue space hanging out on the wrong side there. Whoops. That was just my mouse going a little crazy for a moment. And there's also some blue space over here. Okay. Alright, so let's deal with those. I'm going to start with this area right here. I'm just going to kind of go along my center line on my actual shark model here. And this is to do with the mouth. This is actually inside the mouth is what this represents. So we can actually go along and grab the center line on our actual shark model. As we do that, it's going to start highlighting right here as well. So we'll just keep going along, grabbing those until we come back to this outside edge, okay? And once we've done that, we've kind of isolated these two separate sides, and we can just go ahead and hit this cut tool, this little scissors guy right here. Once we've done that, we've actually cut away this piece. It doesn't look like anything has happened, but it is now separate, and we can actually just grab any UV on this piece that we've cut away, and we can just go ahead and grab all those UVs and pull it away, okay? Now, if you're wondering how I did that, I was simply holding Shift and pressing the period key, okay? It'll allow me to select more UVs surrounding the ones I already have selected, but only on a particular piece, okay? It's really useful for when you're dealing with UVs. So now I've got my separate piece, I can go put it over here, and we'll deal with it in just a moment. But for now I'm just going to leave it over there because we know that's where it goes. And I'm also going to come down and deal with our other problem area here. Alright, let me grab that center line edge to start with. This is along this fin, okay? And again, you know, I can just grab these edges on my actual model and just go along like this. until we come back to that outside edge again. And then again, we can just use our cut tool. Grab any one of the UVs from our new piece. Hold Shift and period. Press that multiple times to make sure you grab everything on this new piece we've created. We can just pull it away, just like that. And place it right over here. Okay. Now, on this side, we're having some issues with the mouth area already because our outer edges are sort of just kind of swooping in and coming back out again. So that's a bit of a problem. Let's go ahead and move these UVs a bit out of the way. These outer edge UVs, okay? We'll move a couple of those too. Just sort of make room for the things we're going to be doing here. Okay. Just make sure that you're grabbing any outside edge UVs and just moving them forward. Okay. And really, ideally, you just want to give each one a little bit of space so that you can really see them all pretty clearly, okay? And you don't have things just kind of all jumbled up together. Just want to make it easy to see, so I'm just kind of moving these away from one another and giving them a little space. Okay. Now, when I grab one of these edges, there's going to be another edge that lights up, alright? It's going to be on our little piece right here. So when I grab this edge, for example, you know, it's kind of hard to see, but this little teeny tiny edge right here is lighting up. That means those are corresponding edges, alright? And they're actually two different sides of the same edge, okay? So we actually want to sew those guys back together. We know that this piece belongs on this side of the UV map, so we want to sew it to this side, alright? So since we know by grabbing an edge which edge corresponds with it, for example in this case we've got this one corresponding with this little tiny short one right here, we can then move that into place kind of along that edge, alright? We can kind of start to see where things will sew together, okay? So just move things into place to kind of prepare them for being sewn. Now, you know, after you get to this one, when you grab the next edge, nothing lights up. Okay, that's because this is along our center line. All right, so that's kind of where we want the sewing to stop. All right, this also is part of our center line, as well as all of these other guys going along the outer edge here. Okay, so this is our center line, and this is actually on the inside. All right. So let's sew these guys together. Now that we have them set up for sewing, we can just grab these edges all the way along here and use our Sew UV tool. Now they are all together, and we also have now our appropriate center line outer edge that we can just place along the outside here. Okay, once we've kind of placed our outer edges where we want them to be, again, it's still just a question of grabbing an area and a lot of UVs within it and just using that unfold and relax tool, okay, to just even that out. So now our mouth is all unfolded on the one side, and on the other side, we now know where our center line really is, okay? So we can now go about moving our correct center line outer edges into place where we want them to be. And space them out as we see fit. Space mine something like that, but you'll want to take a little more care when you're doing this. I'm just kind of doing it quickly. And again, we'll just use that unfold and relax tool to bring the mouth into shape, okay? So that's fixing things up in the mouth area. We also have this little fin area that we want to kind of re-sew. Just going to bring this a little closer. Again, it's going to be the same process of just first just moving things a little bit away from one another to make some space where we can clearly see our outside edges and lines. And again, it may look a little funny at first, but once we sew everything back together, it will make sense again. Okay. So again, it's just going to be a matter of grabbing an edge, seeing which edge corresponds to that edge, which in this case, when I grab this one, is going to be this one right on the end here. And then just moving our UVs in order to kind of prepare those edges to be sewn together. It's going to look a little messy at first. That's alright, we'll get there. So once we get to right here, this is where we're back at our center line. Okay. Okay, and actually it looks like since I grabbed that edge right there, it corresponds with this edge. So somewhere along here, we've kind of messed up one of our edges. Alright, so it's important to go in and kind of look at individual ones as well and try to figure out where each one goes. Okay. So it looks like a problem is happening right there. So let's go ahead and keep moving things roughly to where they should be going. Okay, so this is just a case of there was an edge here that I didn't quite pull out, so it looked like part of another edge. It was difficult to see, but there it is. Okay. So now when we grab this next edge at the end here, we should see nothing else light up, indicating that this is part of our center line. All right. And the rest of these guys are ready to be sewn together. So we'll just grab them. And sew them together using our sew tool right here. Okay, so that's all sewn together. We now know that everything on the outside edge here is our center line, and we can move it over. So let's just start bringing things over. Again, it's all right if it looks a little messy at this point, just as long as we kind of establish where our outside edges are and just bring them over and give them good spacing. Okay, so something like that is probably fine. And again, once we've got those outside edges taken care of, we can really just come in, grab a large area like this. Make sure you're grabbing all these little guys that are part of this little tangled part, okay? And again, just use that unfold and relax tool. Just relax those, and you can see how much that has improved. Alright, in that space. So, next thing we're going to kind of deal with is our center line here in the center. Okay, we've kind of dealt with our center line that's on the bottom of Sharky, that's on these outside edges here. But we also need to deal with the center line on the top of Sharky here, okay, which is going to be right smack dab in the center of this. Now, at the moment, it's veering off really far to the right, okay? So we really want to bring that back into line. What I'm actually going to do that is grab a whole bunch of these guys, alright? Just all across the top here. And I have grabbed the outside edges as well, because, what I can do at this point, once I've grabbed all of that, is just hold down the Shift key, alright, and marquee select that outside edge that I have selected. And once I do that while holding the Shift key, it's going to deselect all of those, okay? And I can do that on the top here as well. I can use my Shift key to kind of deselect some of those top ones. But of course, anytime I'm using that, I have to be careful and really double check those outer edges to make sure that I've gotten rid of everything I don't want, okay? So look closely when you're doing this. Alright, so I'm confident that I don't have any of the outside edges selected, but I have a whole bunch of the inner edges selected. So I'm just going to, again, use that Smooth UV tool and use Relax, okay? And you can just see how that center line that was very skewed, if you watch it when I am using the Relax tool, you can see how it just comes and pops right back into the center, okay, just where we want it. Okay, so that's looking good. We're happy with that result. All right, everything's looking nice and even. Spacing is good. It's getting a little bit mishmashed right up in this top area here, what I would suggest is actually dealing with your outline here, your outer edges, okay? Let's just pull those up a little bit so we can see them better, because they're getting kind of squished, alright? That's sort of what's happening in this area. Okay, so we can actually pull these over quite a bit, alright? And pull those over, something like that. Pull this over as well. Maybe a couple of these even we could pull over. Okay. And once you've done that, make sure that you do put them on this UV space here. Okay, on the edges of the UV space. And basically, just by reorienting my outer edges, I can kind of reorient the whole topology using that smooth UV tool. Okay, so I'm going to grab this as well and pull it over a lot. And the next one, just a few of these, you know, from the edge here. I'm going to just move over to hang out on the top edge rather than on this side edge, which is getting a little crowded. Okay, I'm not going to go too crazy with this right now, but you'll see why we do it in just a moment here. So I'm just going to move that guy right there. Alright, so, you know, once I've done that, once I've kind of reoriented my edges a little bit, again, I'm just going to grab, this is a very lather, rinse, and repeat sort of a process. Just grab those edges, make sure I deselect my outside edges. Don't want any outside edges included in my selection. Okay. Once I'm sure I've gotten all those outside edges deselected, I can again just use my Unfold and Relax tool and just relax those a little bit, okay? And it's going to really help keep things from pulling too much, okay? So again, we can do the same thing on the bottom. Now, you know, we kind of did that before, and I wound up having a crash because Maya does like to do that a lot, so I started over. So you can see this is still tangled up at the moment, but we kind of went over that area already, so I'm going to leave that up to you, alright, on the bottom there. And once you've done that, you should have a fairly square map with really some nicely laid out UVs that are spaced appropriately, both on the tail area and at the top here, and that are well balanced and have these really nice straight center lines that aren't veering off in one direction or the other, okay? Let me know if you have any questions about anything that we went over today. I know UV mapping is pretty complex a lot of the time and tedious. So if anything was confusing, or you know there's just something that you want a little extra help with, let me know, and I'll be happy to help out. So thanks for watching today, and happy modeling!